program, Coming Home.
We began by meeting at a hotel in the ballroom, and from there we came upon a property that we are currently at today.
And I get on them all the time. We have to change our thinking if we're ever going to walk in the kingdom of God.
Well, hello and welcome to today's program. It's been a while since I've been on the program myself hosting. It's good to be back, and I hope you're enjoying this brisk Iowa weather that we're having in this month of February. And today I'm honored and privileged to have two guests on the program, both of them representing Bridgehaven Pregnancy Support Center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And to my left is the Executive Director, Chelsey McDill. Chelsey, welcome to the program. And next to her is Director of Client Advocacy. Am I saying that correctly, right. Marilyn? Marilyn, it's good to have you on the program today.
You,
and we're going to start out by having Chelsey first just share a little bit about herself and how she happens to be doing what she's doing today and why she's doing that. So, Chelsey?
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for having us this morning. I've been with Bridgehaven for almost 6 months now. We're at that 6-month mark. And I came to Bridgehaven by way of a career in telecommunications, actually. And I've been very involved in our community in Cedar Rapids. And Bridgehaven has had a spot in my heart for a few years now. And God has led me to understand that my role as a leader in corporate world has really prepared me for a role in leadership in nonprofit and specifically with Bridgehaven's ministry. So it's been an amazing journey for me and our family, but I will tell you that finding a home at Bridgehaven, even though we're working with a lot of people in the community, what it's done for me and my growth and my closeness with the Lord has just been amazing. So,
praise God. So
yeah.
You've been involved in media prior to this. Interesting. Well, that's good to know. Maybe you can give me some tips. But Marilyn, let's hear a little bit about you.
Well, my background initially was in education, graduated from the University of Iowa in speech and education, and worked for 4 different school districts as a sub-teacher for 6 years, and then got in merchandise, and then my husband and I went into business. While I was in business with my husband, we did custom van conversions, and I was having back trouble. And the physical therapist that was working on my back worked at what used to be Bridgehaven's name formerly was Aid to Women.
I see.
So my therapist is working on my back, and we connect. We're both Christians, and she starts sharing that she is a volunteer at Aid to Women. So fast forward about 11 years, and I got out of that business, felt like the Lord called me out, and started working for 4 Oaks, working with kids in residential treatment. And I did that for 6 years with girls in Monticello, and then went to a chemical dependency program that 4 Oaks has. When I got there, there was an agency that was there that was teaching sex education. And I was concerned about, are the kids hearing the message at all about preventing not preventing birth defects, that was with March of Dimes, but about just healthy relationships and sexual integrity and avoiding sexual risks. Are they hearing that message? So I asked my boss, and he said, well, I think they talk about that. Well, I went to some of their meetings, and I was concerned because there was teen boys and girls in the same meeting that were talking about very explicit sexual things without a lot of guidance around morals and values, and just the idea that they don't have to submit to peer pressure. So I asked him, my boss, I said, I know there's an agency in town that I heard about way back when that physical therapist was working on my back, called Aid to Women, and they work with teens in a prevention program in sex education about healthy relationships. Can I talk to them about coming in as well? Yeah, have them write a proposal. So I called Aid to Women, and they said, oh, actually, we've been praying about getting into the residential program with kids. We'd like to see your outline. So got it set it up, and 4 Oaks let us come in and do an every other week our form of helping kids to avoid sexual risk and have healthy relationships.
Yes.
And well, then the kids started asking so many questions that were actually faith and biblical related. that we asked the kids, would you like to, it sounds like you're interested in your faith, and how does this relate to the Bible, and would you like to have a Bible study? And kids signed an agreement that this, on their own time, when they could be playing video games or you know, reading or whatever, they would like a Bible study. So we came in every week then with a Bible study. Well, then my boss said, you know, we need to have a staff member sitting in on that. Would you be willing to be our staff to sit in from 4? I said, well, yeah. You know, so I got to sit in and just pray for the woman from Aid to Women that was leading the kids in these discussions about how does biblical values relate to everyday life and your choices and facing peer pressure.
Yes.
And what if your parents are using drugs and they don't have values, but you want a different lifestyle? Lots of interesting discussions. The kids are really open. And after a couple years there, I was a supervisor. So I not only had 24 teens dealing with chemical dependency, depression, conduct disorder, all that, plus men and women, you know, young girls and young men together. So there was all those kind of, there's a lot of crisis management, I'll just put it that way. So I got to the point where I knew that I needed to leave, but I didn't know what God had for me next. So I said to the gal that was teaching from Aid to Women, would you pray with me about what God's leading me to next? And she said, you know what, there's a new position just opened up at Aid to Women, Director of Counseling Services. I think you'd be a great fit. I thought, pregnancy center? Never gave that a thought. So I called, interviewed on the phone, ended up into 4 one-hour interviews, and they hired me as their new Director of Counseling Services, which developed into client advocacy. And during that time I was able to finish my master's degree at the University of Northern Iowa in mental health counseling. So the Lord just navigated me, you know, just like Chelsey. We had no idea years ago where we were going, how the Lord was preparing us for what we're doing.
You know, you just read my mind, because I'm sitting here thinking about, you know, when you give your life up to God and virtually say to God, you know, whatever you want to do with me, Lord, I'm willing to do. You never know where the Lord's going to lead you and how, what you were, I mean, you look where you're at today, you look at things you've done in the past, and you see the hand of God has been on you. And in everything that you've done, because it's all been preparing you for what you're doing right now.
That's right.
And you know, there's some people maybe watching the program that you didn't even know there was such a thing as a pregnancy center. Is that
Pregnancy Support Center.
Support center. And this is certainly an issue that's plaguing this generation. And so I guess what I'd like to do is, Chelsey, if you want to take a few moments just to talk about Bridgehaven. I know you have a pretty large full-time staff and support staff that are, so there's a lot of people working with you.
There's a lot of people working with us. Well, Bridgehaven supports families, men and women and children in all circumstances surrounding pregnancy. And so we divide that up in kind of the before, during, and after segments.
Yes.
We can talk through those a little bit, but we do have a full staff supporting all of the efforts and all of the services that we provide. We have about 13 people on our staff. But we also have an enormous group of volunteers that work with us day in and day out. So we have anywhere from around 100 people a week kind of coming in and out doing different things, anywhere from working with our clients directly or working in our Treasures resale shop. That's one of the ways that Bridgehaven is funded.
I see.
We actually have a resale shop, and that's really ran by our volunteers. We have 2 employees that manage it, but then the volunteers are going through all of the donations that come through, pricing them, researching them, making the shop look beautiful, and being cashiers for the customers that come into
what's
shop.
What's the name of the shop again?
It's called Treasures Resale Shop.
Treasures Resale Shop. So if you're live in Cedar Rapids or you're in Cedar Rapids and you're shopping, where would they find this store?
It just moved. It is now on 8th Avenue, Southeast.
Southeast, okay. So in going and shopping at this store, you're supporting Bridgehaven.
Exactly.
It's actually 8th Street. And for that,
I apologize.
No problem. So it's right near Mercy Hospital.
Is it? Okay.
Just on the
Well, I
south
sure know
side.
where that is. I've been there a couple times. But so it is a tremendous amount of staff, and you mentioned before, during, and after Can you break that down a little
Yeah.
bit more and just share about what you do specifically to help people? And first of all, there's no cost for anyone to come.
All of our services are free
That's important.
to the community.
Because
Yep.
people would say, well, you know, what's it going to cost me to go? That's the first question people want to know.
Exactly.
Does my insurance cover this, or what's it going to cost me to go? And all these services are free.
We like to say that we function under grace and mercy. There's no red tape
Yeah.
to be a part of our services here. And there's really, it's not for a certain demographic of people either. You know, I think there's a lot of assumptions sometimes that are made that we are a service that's for a certain demographic of people, but we find ourselves as humans in trouble at certain
right.
parts of our lives, and sometimes we need a little extra help, and we're for anybody who needs a little extra help
Isn't that
and
the
someone to
truth?
walk alongside them.
And you know, it's all about family. That God initiated the family, and all the stresses and problems that families have, and you know, young girls becoming pregnant without planning it. You know what I mean? These kinds of things are just part of the stresses and pressures that are facing families
Well,
today.
an
you know?
unplanned pregnancy happens whether you're married or unmarried,
Yeah.
you know, and we even see women a lot of times that have 2-3 kids and they're facing an unplanned pregnancy.
All right.
And what do I do next? How do I move forward with this unplanned situation that I'm dealing with, and how does our family navigate through that? We're here to help with all of that.
I think that's important to emphasize, because I just talked to a man and his wife that became pregnant. They were not expecting this, and they're kind of about at that stage of life where they're through having children, but they found out that she was pregnant. And so you actually help counsel people that are already have children, or they're already married, but it just takes them by surprise, and so you can help them as well.
Yeah, and that's really Marilyn's expertise. I mean, that's the area where you would see Marilyn. So you can kind of elaborate on that a little bit. for
Yeah,
us.
just recently I had a woman that, you know, she has a 15-year-old, 11-year-old, and now a pregnancy, you know, thought she was done
Wow.
with that. So she had a lot of concerns about the financial, you know, can we financially handle another child?
Yes.
And are my other 2 kids going to suffer because we have, you know, she was even worried about family vacations and what it was going to cost, and if we have another 3rd child, would this 3rd child make the other 2 deprive them? And she's a woman of faith. She believes that a child is a gift from God, and that there are women that have struggling with infertility, but yet she's still considering abortion because she thinks that her other 2 children are going to suffer if they have
Right.
this 3rd child. And so we, you know, it's not a typical thing, but it's one of those situations, you know. Sometimes, one of my first situations was, she was a senior in high school, had a basketball scholarship, and her mother came in, high heels suit, very looked like a career woman, and said, I want my daughter to have a pregnancy test, and if she's pregnant, we are going to have an abortion. And I didn't realize at that time, because I was new in the ministry, that that's actually illegal in Iowa. It's a Class 2 felony for a parent to pressure a minor child into
my.
having an abortion. I didn't know that. So now we have papers from the Justice Foundation that we can hand to that mom and hand to that teenager, explaining to them, even though she's a minor,
Yes.
she is still the parent of that child. She's identified, you know, by the government as the legal guardian of that child. She makes the decision.
I see.
Parent cannot pressure her by withholding support or I'm going to kick you out if you have this baby. They cannot coerce her.
Yeah.
That's called coercion. And we find that there's a lot of women who experienced abortion that didn't choose that because they wanted it. It was, they were coerced into it, either
Yes.
by parents threatening, or what if your dad's the pastor of the church, and what is that going to mean to my
Sure.
reputation?
You
We
bet.
can't handle this. There's so many different pressures. A boyfriend that says, you know, I really love you, honey, and we can have kids later, but this is not a good time. We're both going to school. We got to finish our degree. And he would pressure her. So, you know, we come alongside to just let her know you have a choice.
Yes.
And to recognize what those pressures are. Let her
Yes.
talk about them. Because if we don't listen to her story first and show an empathetic, understanding heart,
Yes.
she won't listen to anything we have to say.
Yeah.
Well, and we find that a lot of women are already pressuring themselves, and then to have someone validating those pressures on top
certainly.
of it, just compounds
Yes.
the emotions that happens, that go on for them.
Yes.
And Marilyn's group, which is the during, that
During.
when I say the before, during, and after, Marilyn's group does a really good job of allowing them to have space to figure out those emotions, to allow those pressures to kind of fall outside themselves, and to evaluate them in a space that is non-judgmental, that's compassionate
Yes.
and loving. And that is what they do best.
Yes. Marilyn, if you would just look into the camera and speak directly to the viewers and just say, if you or someone you know is in this situation, what would you say? Have the opportunity now to just speak to the viewing audience. What would you say to them if they are in this situation or they know of someone who is? What would you say to them right now?
Well, let's just talk to the person that you have a friend, or maybe it's a granddaughter that's facing an unplanned pregnancy. If they come and share that with you, know that that is a huge compliment. They are trusting you. And, you know, it's like handling something very precious when someone shares their pain with you and their fears. So the first thing is just to be a good listener, to not panic yourself, to slow your own breathing down even, and just say, you know, Lord, help me listen. Help me listen to her heart. What is she feeling? So let her talk through her options, what's pressuring her, and then maybe offer to, you know, let's go. Can I help you? Can we find a pregnancy center near you? There's one here in Dubuque called Clarity Clinic. Ours is in Cedar Rapids area, Bridgehaven Pregnancy Support Center. We can go there, and all their services are free. It's confidential. If her mom calls, if she's underage, let her know. You know, we will honor her confidentiality, and so she's protected. Our focus is on helping her. We'll let her talk through her pressures and what she's thinking about. Then we'll also present alternatives to abortion. You know, what does she think about adoption? Does she understand the difference between closed and open adoption? And then we can refer to the really reputable adoption agencies in the area. But coming alongside of her and listening is the most important thing. And of course, praying for her in your heart. But be slow to offer solutions. Or, oh, you don't want to do that, honey. You don't want to start doing the shoulds, the pointing the finger. Being a safe place to talk through those pressures is so, so important. And then bring her in. You know, offer to come alongside her, to bring her in. If you're in that situation yourself as an unplanned pregnancy, just know you're not alone. You don't have to go through this alone. Whatever fears you're facing, we are here to help you. God loves you no matter what the situation is. He has a good plan for you. So give yourself some time to research the situation and what your choices are. And be willing to trust someone to come alongside and help you.
Amen. And Chelsey, you mentioned that Marilyn works with the now situation, but you as executive director, you're overseeing the before and the now and the after.
Yep.
And in this first segment of our program today, you've heard a little bit about the during or the now, what the agency can do to help, but what is involved in the before?
The before is really that prevention side of things that Marilyn kind of talked about a little bit when working with the Four Oaks kids. But what we do is we work with a curriculum that really focuses on sexual risk avoidance.
Yes.
And so we work with kids in high school and kids in middle schools.
Middle schools, even. How do you do that? I mean,
well, the high school kids are part of our group that we have called Veracity, and the devotion to truth or dedication to truth is what that means. And those kids, every month they come together and they practice. They rehearse different topics and skills and teachings that they then go into the middle schools and do a peer-to-peer teaching.
The high schoolers go into the middle schools.
Go into the middle schools.
Really? Isn't that incredible?
It's incredibly powerful
Yes.
because young kids can only listen to adults so far when it comes to credibility in what they experience on a day-to-day basis. And these high school kids have that credibility with them. We listen to their stories, and the middle school kids latch on to what they're saying and how they're interpreting and how they manage through friendships and relationships. And so, you know, we feel and we see that kids making good decisions and friends and just healthy choices overall.
Healthy choices.
Healthy from physical to emotional, you know, to mental, all of those things, they all come together in that sexual risk avoidance, because that's just that building block into making that decision itself to have sex with your boyfriend or girlfriend.
So you find that schools, most schools, are very open to allowing you to come into, what do you do, address them first as a general assembly, and then out of that group you get high schoolers that are willing to work with you as a team to minister down to the middle school level?
It happens a little more organically than that. A lot of it comes from building relationships.
Sure.
We are not in every school in Cedar Rapids, no, but we are in a few. And the few that we are in, I think, are very impactful as far as the demographic that we're working with in those schools. So they're good schools to be in. We're always looking for more relationships to be able to build within the school systems, and also the churches as well. We do work with some youth groups too. So there's always different ways to really get in front of the kids in different atmospheres. It doesn't always have to be with the schools either.
So it's usually in a classroom setting, not an assembly.
Not a general assembly, okay.
Not a general. So usually classroom setting, and lots of times they allow the kids, the middle school kids, to write questions out anonymously that they would like the high school kids to address. So then the high school kids who have made the choice for sexual integrity, they're part of our volunteer team. They are part of Bridgehaven.
That is wonderful.
So they go, then they grapple with these questions. And some of our high schoolers in the past have been sexually active, frankly, and then found out, you know, what kind of those choices, how that added stress to their life, you know, added complications. It distracted them from their focus of their career goals. They're able to share then, you know, once I thought that was a good idea, that I needed to be involved sexually, and I found out what it cost me, and this is what I choose now. So they have a very strong voice. We're just so proud of those kids.
Yes. About 22 years ago, I would say, I had the opportunity, along with another person in our community, to go into the high school and to do a presentation. And so it was just the high schoolers. So, and they, as you said, it was in a classroom setting, and they came in different groups, and we would represent the same material to them about abstinence and about pregnancy and about making good decisions. And at the end, I asked them to write something out that they got out of it. And the most common thing I heard was, "You're too late. High school is too late. You should have got to us when we were in middle school." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to hear you say this, that and I don't mean to say utilize, but to have the partnership with high schoolers that understand what you're trying to do, and to have them go into the middle school age, and because I think the middle schoolers will listen probably more than to adults. They will listen to somebody closer to their
That's
age,
what
won't
we've
they?
seen.
Absolutely. And we had one young man that just blew me away with how he was very confident in what he was talking about as far as his choices that he made. He was an athlete in school, football player, swimmer, a very good student, talked about how he treated girls and how he saw what a girlfriend meant to him. And you should have saw the ears that perked up in that room. Not just the girls, but the boys, the young boys talking about, you know, I only hold hands with the girl when I know that she is on the same page as I am, and that we are we're going down a path that's more serious. And then he talked about even just kissing. If a girl expects me to kiss her within the first year, the first 2 years, it's going to happen when God wants it to happen.
Wow.
And that is, in our culture today, the pressures of just those two things, holding hands and kissing, you know, that's sometimes the first day. And so to hear a young man in his world, in his culture, who is a great athlete, a great student, very highly respected by his peers in
Yes.
high school, to be saying those things. That's a powerful message.
You bet it
Very
is.
powerful message.
Last night I, for a few minutes, addressed the youth in our church, and I said, you know, God wants you to be a leader, not a follower. And, you know, sometimes at first you may have to stand alone. You may not only have to stand alone, you may have to stand alone with persecution. But because of your own convictions, the time will come when people will begin to see that you really believe what you say, and they're going to align themselves up with you, and then you'll become the leader. And but I think this is so important because in the school systems, I can't even tell you reports I've heard of things that go on. It troubles my heart so much, but it's the culture. And what is influencing our culture today? And I think that would be a good thing to touch on. What is it that's over the years that has changed our culture to bring about this way of thinking among our young people?
Well,
What's influenced
music, media, fashion has influenced our culture. Technology has influenced our culture. I mean, there are so many aspects of our culture that has just become, what's the word I'm looking for?
Hedonistic or
They've become the idols, you know, whether it's
Yes.
musicians or
Yep.
even technology has become this obsession to kids, and what it provides them, that self-satisfaction, that immediate gratification that they're
Yes.
looking for. And therefore, when the video games, also big part of our culture, and how,
Yes.
I mean, women, how they're portrayed in video games is
Even the
teaching young
commercials, yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
commercials, video games, all of it are teaching our kids. I have a 6-year-old boy, and his perception of a woman at
A whole boy?
a 6-year-old boy.
Not a sixth grader, a 6-year-old
boy. And, you know, I worry all the time about what is his perception of a woman and how is he growing up. And, you know, my husband and I talk about it a lot, is what is our role as parents to help him to understand that what he is seeing, what he's being blasted with, from TV to video. I mean, he's not playing those video games yet, but they're coming at
Sure.
some point. He's going to see them at a friend's house. He's going to, something's going to happen where he'll see those. But magazines, billboards, it's blasted out there in his face, and we are just as parents.
Sure.
And so how do we combat that? How do we fight that? How do we help each other as parents? And I see that as, for me, one of my biggest motivators is we're helping parents. We're helping parents to think better for their kids, to believe that there's more out there than just what media tells us there is out there.
Yeah, and I'd like for you to comment on that as well, Marilyn, because I really think that the younger generation is everybody's looking for acceptance, looking to be accepted in the group. They're looking for love. And so I think this sets many young people, not all of them, but many of the young people up to be vulnerable
Yes.
to media influence or to peer pressure. And so what would you have to say about that?
Well, I think about how families have changed over the years, you know, and how kids need a mom and a dad, you know, and there's a lot of single moms out there that are doing a great job. And I love the churches that help support the single moms, you know, and have men working with the kids and helping support that mom and those kids, and helping kids to have some positive relationships with male figures. Just needing dad. The fatherless generation is
Fatherless generation.
It's huge, and there's something very unique that a dad provides. I was concerned the other day, somebody came in for a follow-up appointment with me. This is, see, her little boy's about 2 now, and her whole focus has become on her child, and her husband feels really left out. And she says, you know, I really don't need him. I can do this on my own. And I was like, you know, I don't want her to alienate him. And husband's off, he feels like he's not a part of the family. You know, how do we let him know he's important.
wow.
And that was one of the reasons why we changed the name of Aid to Women to Bridgehaven Pregnancy Support Center.
Yes.
Because we wanted to include that dad and
You
encourage
bet.
him that his voice is important.
Yes.
And it sounded like Aid to Women, that sounded gender exclusive, you know? And I'd always kind of tease guys when they came in. I said, boy, you're really brave. Thanks for coming in today. Aid to Women outside, and you came in. Thanks. You know, I try to build them up. But so that was one of the reasons why we changed. And
Yes.
because Aid to Women really didn't accurately describe who we are. Some people thought we did domestic violence work or that we were a shelter for women.
Right.
You
It
know?
kind of sounds that way by the name, doesn't it?
Rental assistance, you know, so
Right.
Bridgehaven Pregnancy Support Center is more definitive, you know, in
That's
describing
awesome.
that. But we really encourage the young men that come in and thank them that they're part of making this decision, that they do have a voice. One day a
Yes.
young couple came in and the client advocate went with the young woman to talk to her, pregnancy test, do options discussion. And the young man was sitting by himself right outside my office. So I went out and sat with him. I said, so how you doing today? Okay. I said, how are you feeling about a possible pregnancy? Well, I think she wants to have an abortion, but I think we could do it. I said, have you told her that? Well, no. See, in our society, the myth is out there that it's her choice. It's her body, her choice. So young men sometimes are even afraid to share, you know, whatever she wants to do, I'll support it. And I just encouraged them. I said, you know, she needs to hear your heart.
Yes.
You know, I love what you just said. I think we could do it. Does she know that? You know, so I just encouraged them to be open. It was interesting because by the time the young woman came out, they'd had a positive test, and after discussing it with her client advocate, she was hopeful. And so then they got together and they both decided, we can do this. You know?
Yes.
So we have trained now young men, young fathers that come in and trained them in the client advocacy role. So we have men volunteers to work with that young man. So they do follow up with them.
This is incredible. I wouldn't have never would have thought that men would be a
Yes.
part of this. Well, we want to take a break here for just a moment and just stay tuned for the second half because we've just laid a foundation and hopefully the things that have been shared have caught your attention. And again, maybe you know somebody that's facing this or that is going through this or has already had the baby and the things that come afterwards. And so stay tuned for the second half of our program as we delve more into just all the different services and supports that are available through Bridgehaven. Well, thank you for staying tuned to our program today, and we're going to come back to Chelsey McDill and have her share a little bit more about what she was saying about the men volunteers that are involved in what they do.
Yes.
Chelsey?
Well, we did launch a men's ministry just a couple of years ago, and as Marilyn was saying earlier, we when a client comes in, and sometimes they have a support person that comes with us, and sometimes that is a mother or a friend, but a lot of times that's the boyfriend. And those are the people we want to try to really engage.
Yes.
And so we have some men volunteers that have been trained also to counsel and to advocate with the men with this topic. So while the women are in having the pregnancy test, the men are having a conversation.
Isn't
you
this
know,
something? I
they
did
don't
not know this.
talk about feelings; they talk about what they're thinking, because that's how men talk. And so the men have an opportunity to really express themselves at this point, because as Marilyn said, a lot of times they just say, I'm going to go with whatever she wants to do. And this is a topic, this is a conversation my husband and I have had quite a bit, but this is a topic where men need to stand up and have a voice and be heard and,
Yes.
and say how they feel about the life that's growing inside the woman that they love.
Yes.
And what can they do? How can they be of support and encouragement and walk with them through this time of questions and sometimes shame and guilt and be together through that. Because a lot of times what they'll find is like the example that Marilyn just shared of the couple that finally came together and figured out we can do this.
Can do this.
Gosh, what an incredible moment in their relationship.
Yes.
For how they're going to walk forward in life now and communicate
Yes.
differently. And I mean, that's a milestone in just the relationship for the two of them as well,
Yes.
as how they're going to move forward with the baby.
That is incredible. You know, people need help, especially when something that you're not expecting jumps up and you. I mean, it could be a financial crisis, it could, but or something like this, that you need someone who is trained and skilled and who cares and loves. And I think the caring, the gentleness, the way that you handle people is very important. So that they feel free to open up, they feel secure, safe. You know what I mean?
That's a good
to
word.
talk openly.
Feel safe.
You know? Yes. So that's amazing. So, but you're always looking for more volunteers too.
Always looking for more volunteers. And for the men's ministry, for example, we want those that can come and mentor. We actually, some of the men that come in, we create a longer relationship with them and do weekly mentoring or every other week mentoring with those guys that come in, and we have classes where
they can be a
teach
part of
as
the
well.
prenatal class.
Yep.
They can be part of a parenting class.
Yes. And you know, I see what you're doing as ministry. In fact, I say to people that probably at least 85% or more of ministry for the Lord is done by people other than pastors. And it's done outside the church setting. And so what you have is a ministry. And how important it is to the Father, you know, because God is the giver of life. If we could only understand that life begins at conception. And maybe you can touch on that, because there is some scientific disagreement about that, about, you know, when life begins. And so would one of you just take a moment before we move on? Could we just touch on it with that? When does life begin, and how do we know that?
Well, when the sperm and the egg meet, cell division starts right away, immediately. You know, so there's growth. Well, growth connotes life. You know, and this is one reason why we added the ultrasound services at Bridgehaven. We had the pregnancy test and the options discussions for many years. Well, about 3 years ago, after the flood, our building was hit by the flood. Oh, no. And so we had our basement and the first floor, 4.5 feet, wiped. Everything had to be stripped down to the studs. Well, it gave us the opportunity in 2008 to reevaluate, is this the time to add ultrasound services when we reconfigure the building? So the whole building was redesigned. It's a lot more efficient now, and it adds the ultrasound services. So if a woman, we usually ask her when she's about 7 weeks from her last menstrual cycle, we encourage her to come in for a free ultrasound. That way we can, you know, for one thing, where is the pregnancy? That pregnancy test, when that second line comes up, doesn't tell us where the pregnancy is. What if she's having a tubal pregnancy and she thinks she's going to go in for an abortion, doesn't need an abortion, she really needs medical care for that tubal pregnancy, or an ectopic pregnancy we can call. So the ultrasound then helps her to see, no matter what her decision is, she needs to know where is the pregnancy. Then we look for the baby's heartbeat, we chart that, and then we also do some called crown rump measurements. So from the top of the head to the butt of the baby, we can determine then how many weeks she's into the pregnancy, and a due date for her. And that's all done with no charge. We have a medical director, Dr. Don Nelson, then, who reviews all the scans that are done by our nurses, who are RNs, who are trained also in sonography. So he reviews all those to make sure that we saw, you know, that we diagnosed it right. This is a pregnancy, and she can go on to get prenatal care. Then we refer her on to her doctor for her prenatal care. But, you know, seeing that young man coming in and sitting with his partner and watching his baby on the screen, seeing that baby move around. We've even seen babies wave. I'm not kidding you. You know, not at 7 weeks, but lots of times, if they've been in denial about that pregnancy and they come into us when she's 13, 14, 15 weeks along and do an ultrasound, they're going to be amazed. They can see the heart. They can see the rib cage, the spinal column. They can see the thumb go into the mouth. That impacts. You know, visual is very strong impact. So we are just really blessed to have the nurses and Dr. Don Nelson working in that medical area. And we have developed in a relationship with the OBs and the clinics in our area who call us and say, you know, so-and-so had an ultrasound, can you fax over the report? So we fax that report then right to her doctor, who will do the follow-up care. So that has built some excellence in our reputation with the medical community.
So that, you say conception, at conception, cell formation begins, but it isn't just cell formation. That child already has a soul. It has the ability to feel, and it has...
You're right.
Yes.
And you know, if we have the opportunity, we will talk about spiritual things with our clients. We always ask permission when we go into a different
Yes.
area. You know, I might say, after listening to her story and her pressures, can I share something from the Bible from you that I think will encourage you? Very seldom do I have somebody say, no, I don't want to hear that. Almost always I say, well, sure. We can open to Psalm 139.
Yes.
In your womb, I made you. I knit you together when you're in your mother's womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. We can go to Jeremiah 29:11 through 13. It says, the thoughts I have for you, says the Lord, they're thoughts for good. They're not for harm. We want to bring a future and a hope, God says, through your word, and bring you out of places of captivity. So it's interesting that sometimes that can lead into a spiritual discussion if she's open. If she's not ready, you know, we don't push it because we want to go into those areas where she's ready. We don't want to alienate her.
Yes.
And we offer prayer. Would you like me to pray with you today?
Wonderful.
If they say yes, what would you like me to pray with you about?
Yes.
Not imposing my agenda on her.
It's wonderful.
And some people say, I'm good. That's
Yep.
fine. You know, we offer a Bible if she'd like one. But for sometimes, it's amazing. I have shared Jeremiah 29 and had them read it. And as they're reading it, the tears start coming down. You know, I'm just picturing different clients, and you just see, even those that don't have any spiritual beliefs, when they start reading the Word of God, that's life. There is life in the Word of God.
Yes.
So as a nonprofit, faith-based organization, we have the freedom to do that.
It's wonderful.
Now, at Four Oaks, I had to be really careful about that, you know, because I was in a secular place where I did ask kids if they would like me to pray for them, and I had some wonderful opportunities. But, you know, I have a freedom at Bridgehaven Pregnancy Support Center that is just marvelous.
Wonderful.
And we pray together as staff all the time. If we've had a hard situation, we encourage each other, and we'll go in and counsel each other and pray together. We start the day with prayer.
Yes.
So it's an amazing, we're just so blessed to be there.
Yeah. Chelsey, I want you to share, we talked a lot about the during, a little bit about the before and prevention, but there's also an after, and I want you to share on that. But before we do, I want to, so I don't forget this, how do you overcome, or are you faced with having to overcome this point of view that this is a woman's right to choose? Do we dare touch on that in this interview? Do we dare talk about that? Does that come up at all? Do you have to somehow help people to see beyond that line of thinking?
In my experience so far, I haven't. I mean, I'm 6 months into it, but I mean, I have kind of in my personal life had to deal with some of that. I've done some reading on it, but I haven't had to really, you know, force that message. I think that because at Bridgehaven, we aren't about one side or another. You know, there's this argument that happens here, and we believe in walking alongside our clients where they're at. And so we do not participate or we're not active in the political area. We are truly believers that if we walk alongside, if we cross that table and hold your hand, God will do the rest.
Yes.
You know?
I'm sorry I brought that up, but
No,
I see this
good
on news and in the media so much about this is the argument, you know, that's presented, and so we don't want to argue.
I think the argument's always going to be there, you know, but it's important for us to understand our role in the argument is to love, is to love well, and to reach across that table, open opportunities, and if they choose not to take that, God will work on it in another way. But sometimes it's just planting a seed. Yes. And that's what we're there for.
Can I speak to that in a moment?
Absolutely.
Lots of times I'll get a phone call. I handle some of the crisis phone calls, and a woman, I answer the phone. Can I help you, Richard? She says, I'd like to have an abortion. Can you help me get an abortion? This is not a good time for me to be pregnant. I'll be very clear with her. We do not provide or recommend abortions. However, this is a safe place for you to come and talk about it.
Good.
So that you understand the procedure and that you can understand the risk. Just like in any medical procedure, if you're going to have tonsils out, the doctor's going to tell you, this is what we're going to do. Here's how the recovery process is going to go. Here's some risks that you might face. So we just want her to be well informed. So, and I had one woman the other day ask me on the phone, so you're not going to try to pressure me and make me not do this? And so we won't try to make you do anything. We want to help you be informed. We'll talk about all your choices.
Awesome.
And then your choice is your choice.
Yes, that's good, excellent way to handle it, because it disarms people. They don't get on the defensive.
And I think the other great thing about what we do is if they do leave and make a choice to have an abortion, if they were to come back for help again, it's the same. They can expect the same
Yes.
love and the same service and the same protection that they got the first time.
Yes.
This isn't about our role is not to judge,
Not
and
to
it's,
judge.
it's to do what we can to bring them closer to God and to
Yes.
do what we can to help them along the way.
So Chelsey, why don't you take it from there, because we talked about that before, the prevention side, then helping them through the process of making a decision. And then what about the after? What service or how do you help people that after what? After they've had an abortion or after the baby's born? Either one.
We have both, actually. So after a client would come in, find out that they're pregnant, we have services to then help them when their baby's growing inside them, and then after they're born till they're 18 years old. So a pregnant client could come in and get an ultrasound, then plug into our prenatal classes.
Yes.
So, and like Marilyn said, both the mommy and the daddy can attend the prenatal classes, and it's about a 9-week class that they attend.
22
Oh,
weeks.
okay.
If they attend 16 out of the 22 classes, then they earn a free crib, or that converts into a toddler bed, or a car seat. So, and plus, every week that they come in, they get 10 food items and 12 clothing items. So for that 1 hour of class investment, they're earning their benefits.
Yes.
We have that Earn While You Learn program.
Yes.
So prenatal is not the only class that we offer. We do
Sure.
have new mommy classes, so just parenting classes.
New mommy
We
classes.
have Bible studies. We have sewing classes. We have
Computer.
classes.
Budgeting.
Anger management class, right? So it's
right.
really about life skills. And the classes that we choose to have at Bridgehaven really are about growing good families. What can we learn
Yes.
more
That's right.
so that our families grow together, they grow stronger and closer to the Lord. So
Yes.
and you know, we do serve people of different faiths. So we have
That's important too. I'm glad you
we
brought that up.
absolutely do. We serve clients that are of different faiths, but even again, it comes back to asking that permission and letting them make those decisions. And we
Yes.
find that, wow, the Lord works in amazing ways.
I'm so excited because we had a Muslim woman want a Bible study, and so one of our volunteers is a really good Bible study teacher. So she said, "Well, what is it that you want to know?" And the Muslim woman pointed to the Bible and she said, "This book. I want to know what's in this book,
Oh my,
and I want to know about Jesus."
Yeah.
oh my.
Well, then they started reading the Bible together. She invited another Muslim friend, and now they've invited a third Muslim friend. The 3 Muslim ladies are working with our volunteer and going through a Bible study to find out about this
Jesus.
book and about
Yes.
Jesus.
You know, you talk a lot about, I didn't think about making this a part of our discussion, but you've heard them talk about volunteers. But that does not mean that it does not cost money, that you don't have a great overhead expense. And so, you have a website, correct? And I would encourage you to go to their website, the Bridgehaven website. That information should be on the screen. But, and to learn more about them, and just maybe God would lay it upon your heart to support them financially with a monthly gift, because resources, everything, rent, utilities, there are expenses. It's not all free
Exactly.
help. And so, and it must be supported, and the more it's supported, the more people they're able to reach. So if that's something that God's put on your heart and leads you to support them, just contact them and let them know, or ask them how you can support them, either a one-time gift or a monthly gift to support them in what they're doing. They're saving lives. They're literally saving lives. They're not only saving the life of a child, but they're saving if I can say this, they're saving the mental, emotional future of not just the mother, but the family. The whole family's affected, I think, when something like this happens. So with the time that we have left, let's talk about what happens from the time a person makes the phone call. What can they expect that experience to be like? And then and then when they come in for the first time, they take about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll talk about the conference that
Sounds
you have
great.
coming up.
Well, we have women that call in, and so they have a friendly voice that they're going to be listening to, welcoming, and some of them walk in the door. So we have either they're making an appointment or they're just walking in the door for a pregnancy test. We can get them in right away. If they need an ultrasound, then we will schedule that, like 7 weeks from the last menstrual cycle. But they can expect to be treated with honor and confidentiality right when they come in the door. Then we take them to a private area to even fill out the intake form. So the other clients that are coming in for classes, they're not intersecting.
I see.
They're connected with, and we talk to that woman alone first, even if she comes in with mom or sister as a support person, she's a designated client. We always thank the support person, but we want to talk to her alone first.
Yes. Right.
And then we can bring in mom if the client wants us to,
Excellent.
or bring the boyfriend, husband in.
Everything is thought of.
So the confidentiality is really a really key figure, and it's one of the reasons why we reconfigured the building, to protect the confidentiality of the client.
Oh my, that is so important to a person in that moment, isn't it? Is
It
it
is.
because they...
She wants to feel safe.
I can't imagine what goes through their minds. I mean, that's really, you can only find that out by sitting and listening to them talk about how they're feeling about it and what they're afraid of, and not knowing what to do. And
Well, when I first got hired, some of our Four Oaks kids would come in for pregnancy tests that recognized me. And so they'd say, "Oh, Miss S, I didn't know you were here." In that kind of situation, if they recognize us, I always say, if this is feeling awkward for you, I can get another staff to work with you. And, we want to give them that permission.
Yes.
We want them to feel safe. Now, usually when I say that, they'll say, "Oh, no, I'm okay. I was just surprised to see you here."
Yes.
But if we feel like there's any awkwardness, we'll get somebody else that doesn't know them. What if it's from somebody from their own church?
Yes. Wow. And that I'm sure happens.
Sure.
I think a really unique part of what we do too is our environment in the building itself just lends itself to peace.
Yes. Peace.
And calmness. And so when you walk in, I think people are very surprised to see it's almost a spa-like feel, if you can imagine that there is a candle usually going, there's from the sense to the feel to all of your senses are wrapped up in how you feel about what's going on. And if you can allow your other senses to kind of move away from it, clarity begins to come in a little bit more. And so I think that even our environment has been very well thought out from that perspective.
Wonderful. So again, if you're watching this, and maybe you're watching this and you live in the Cedar Rapids area and you say, I so believe in this that I'd like to get involved. And they could call in and you'd be glad to visit with them on maybe just a few hours a week or something that they could volunteer and be part of this. Or if you know someone that's had an abortion and are going through an emotional time now, you provide services. I'm sure that's the after part.
Yes, it's another one of the afters that we have. We do have a post-abortion recovery support group that we offer as well.
Amazing. Again, I would encourage you to go to the website, and if you're watching this and you know somebody that could benefit from this, but they may not be watching this program, you can direct them to KFXB. Go to their website, go to their watch online and to YouTube, and find this. Have them direct them to go to this program and to watch it on KFXB's YouTube, and maybe God would speak to their heart to do something about their situation. And so we encourage you to do that. So with the time that we have left now, I would like for you to share, Chelsey, about a conference that you have coming up.
Yeah.
This month.
This month, Saturday, February 28th, we have our 4th annual Building Families Conference. And this conference is for everyone. This conference is for families that have young kids, teenagers, single parent families, any type of family. We've actually had grandparents that have found to have some good value out of this conference as well. But this conference is just in the morning, so it's very doable for a busy family to come and attend and spend some time in worship, but also in really talking about issues and topics that impact us today. We talked about some of those things in our culture today, like phones, technology. There's a lot of applications that kids are downloading, and we just don't know what they're getting into
That's
and
right.
what they're being, what they're seeing on those phones. And so there's actually a breakout class on apps that kids are downloading today. There's a breakout session on blending families of divorce and there's a lot of second marriages today and trying to blend those families together. So a lot of the topics are just very applicable to the things that we see in today's culture and what's going on. And how do we then kind of hit that restart button and move forward in a way that's productive? And so the morning will be filled with a lot of encouragement and uplifting messages for families to come in here together. The breakout sessions are great because parents will go to a track and choose a couple breakout sessions. Students can go, and children have a track, and infants even have a track to attend. So everybody's been touched in the family by something that's specific for them.
And this is just a 4-hour program. The entire
Yes.
event is just 4 hours on a Saturday morning,
On a
isn't it?
Saturday morning.
You know, I'm thinking about like Dawn, our youth leader. She is a professional counselor, actually, family counselor. And I'm thinking Dawn would benefit. She would enjoy coming to this. I'm going to make sure to tell her about that. But the information's on the screen in regard to this conference. If you have any questions again about it, because you didn't have a lot of time to talk about
Right.
it, but if you have some interest in that or know somebody that would, they
It's on
can
our website.
contact Bridgehaven.
Yes.
The information is actually on the screen right now for you to make that contact and to make plans to be there, or maybe somebody you know that might benefit from attending this program that day. You know, we could have probably talked about this for a couple of hours, this whole subject. And, you know, what I'd like to consider doing sometime is having you back on the program, and this time bring a couple of willing persons with you, if you think that would work, that have been through your program, that can give a testimony of what that has done for them.
Sure.
Because there's such power in a testimony, isn't it?
I can think of somebody who started out as a client and who is now a volunteer,
Yes.
because her life has been impacted.
And I've spoke with one of your staff that is in the beforehand. They go into
Yeah.
the schools
Tricia.
Yeah.
yes, Tricia,
Yeah.
and I've met her and her husband, and what a work that is. And
Yes.
I made a comment to her. I said, I'll have to have you in on the program sometime, because that's the key, is if we could catch them ahead of time. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? But to get some young people in here, both guys and gals, that have been blessed and helped by your ministry, and to have them share that testimony. We're so glad that you've joined us for this, and this is of importance to every single person, because we've all been somehow affected by someone that's had a pregnancy that they were not planning. And so please take down the information, contact Bridgehaven, offer your support. Maybe you want to be a volunteer. Recommend this to your friends. Thank you for staying tuned.